Auburn is down a quarterback after Dee Davis announced he is in the transfer portal. What does it mean? It may not mean anything. We'll break it all down on today's Locked On Auburn.
Zach, I actually just finished crushing some chicken farm, and I am freaking ready to rock and roll.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. For the second time this week, it is a Charlie Tuesday on a Thursday. Last time we spoke, Dee Davis was on the roster.
Yes.
Now, Dee Davis has announced that he is in the transfer portal, and I think there will be people feeling all sorts of ways about this, Charlie 5. I think some people will look at this and say, oh man, what could have been? I think some people will say, oh, well, several guys came in, Holden Geriner, Zach Calzada, Robby Ashford, those two guys transferring in, probably immediately jump ahead of him to the depth chart. And I think there's still going to be a section of the fan base that looks at this and says, man, Dee Davis still had the most raw talent of all of them, which I don't know if I'm buying. He's certainly talented. I just don't think the path to playing time made a whole lot of sense. So as far as what this means, Charlie 5, it may not mean much of anything. And I know that's boring, but I think Auburn's going to be okay. We said this for weeks, that Dee Davis was probably not going to play a snap at Auburn. And unfortunately for Dee Davis anyway, we were right on that.
Yeah, I think I just don't know that this offensive system really fit his skill set. Really ever, and it never really was going to fit his skill set. He was a Gus quarterback. He committed to Gus. I think he would have been great in that offense if Gus was still here. I would be rooting really hard for him because I think he kind of fits what he wants to do. His strengths is getting on the edge and running, and he's got a lot of skill there, and he can, sling a deep ball. But as far as like drop back passing and being, 5'10" or less, it just didn't seem like this was going to be a good fit for him ever. And it really honestly it never really seemed like you just never really heard from him. When you didn't see him in the Houston game, when he could have at least had a package or two.
That was telling.
But the timing is still weird. I kind of felt like he would at least battle it out through spring and see what happened. But it almost kind of tells you he either sees the writing on the wall or he feels it. He feels that this is not a good system, and he's going to go ahead and get ahead of what I think after spring is going to be a huge wave. So you go ahead and get your name in there now.
Sure.
You can be one of the hotter quarterbacks on the market. And there's some places he could go where he could have a lot of success.
I think you're right. And, one of them may be to follow Gus. I don't know. I think it's certainly a potential landing spot for him.
Hey, go a little bit closer to home, SMU, go play for Rhett Lashley. That's similar type offense. He's going to be looking for a spark in his first head coaching gig. There's going to be some good spots for him. I think he's going to land at a pretty good spot.
And I'll be pulling for him. This is a guy that he signed with Auburn. He chose to sign with Auburn when Auburn did not have a head coach.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That is awesome. And so I thought that loyalty would be rewarded to some extent, and maybe it was. We have no idea how many legitimate opportunities he was given or not. We have no idea. Yep, we don't know.
There's one thing I want to put to bed. This is one scenario or saying that I hear a lot that we just have to stop.
Okay.
He never got a chance, and that falls under anybody that you didn't really get to see in-game opportunities that leaves, and saying and using the phrase he never got a chance. I just wanted to see him get a chance. The
same people, Charlie 5, that say that he never got a chance are the same people that talk about that were really defensive of Harsin during all of this. There's a lot of crossover there. And it's like, well, if you think Harsin's this great coach and this great competitor, which I think a lot of the Auburn fan base does, like Brian Harsin, you can say what you want about the dude, but that guy is going to do everything he possibly can to beat other people. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So like if Dee Davis was his best option,
he's going to play.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Or he would have been second team or third team. Like,
or
coaches,
he has, maybe he's a gadget guy for his first 2 seasons. Like if Harsin thought that was the best route for this football team and for the offense, he would have been on the field.
Exactly. So like, that's just not a scenario that happens in sports. Like, you don't just, if a guy plays bad, you just throw in the next guy, and then you throw in the next guy, and you throw in the next guy until it works. And then if you didn't throw a guy in, he never got a chance. Like, these dudes spend countless hours with these coaches watching film, practicing drills. Like, they know these guys inside and out, and they don't want to lose on purpose. Like, they want to go out and win. Like, there's millions and millions of dollars on the line to actually go win football games. And I chuckle, or I get a kick when people are like, "Oh, I just wish we would have seen him get a chance." I saw that all on Twitter today. I'm like, what do we really think happened? Do we think it's like a Survivor or like a Big Brother where like there's alliances and everybody's trying to vote people off the island? Or it's just, that's not what happens. Like, it's a meritocracy. Like, the best player is typically going to be playing. The best player is going to typically be playing until he can't perform anymore. Then they're going to go to the next guy. So,
right.
I wish the best for him. I kind of hope he goes to one of those. I'd love to see him go to one like a Houston or SMU, kind of go back home.
Sure.
He's already a high school Texas legend. Go ahead and just like throw for 1,000,000 yards at one of those type conferences, run around all over the place, chuck bombs. Like, that would be, I think that's the best situation for him.
Charlie 5, you Auburn message board legend, I 100% agree with you. 100%. 100%. In just a moment, I want to tell you what I love most about all of this. I think there's an element to this that is really beneficial for the Auburn football team moving forward. We'll talk about that. And then in our final few minutes of the show, we will be joined by Locked On Tar Heels host Isaac Shade. I get kind of a little bit of a history lesson on North Carolina Tar Heel transfer Eugene Asante. So you don't want to miss that as well. Hey, today's show is brought to you by Run Your Pool. Look, all of our brackets are busted. I had Auburn beating Kentucky in the national championship. I took an L on the first weekend. But our friends at Run Your Pool, they believe in second chances. Seriously, it's a big deal. So you can round up your friends, those who picked Auburn or Kentucky or Baylor or whoever, and you can start a Sweet 16 pool at runyourpool.com/lockedon. Along with Sweet 16 brackets, Run Your Pool offers square pools. Yes, like the Super Bowl, to keep things interesting each and every week of the tournament. Brackets bust, but the fun doesn't have to stop, people. And so we believe in Run Your Pool. It's because we've run Survivor and bracket contest on there this year ourselves. So start your second chance Sweet 16 pool and more at runyourpool.com/lockedon. That is runyourpool.com/lockedon. Also, another way to enjoy the tournament, Stat Hero. You've heard me talk about these guys before. They're the NCAA's single game pick'ems that they have at Stat Hero. They pit the star players against each other. You can pick, okay, I think this guy is going to have more stats than the other guy. And it's just fun daily fantasy action. And start focusing on the players that you know best with gameplay that doesn't rely on big spreads, long odds, or funky props. So go to stathero.com/lockedon right now. Use promo code LOCKEDON. That is stathero.com/lockedon. Use promo code LOCKEDON for a 100% match. And of course, terms and conditions apply. Auburn message board legend Charlie 5 hanging out with us. This is what I love about the Dee Davis transferring. And I know you mentioned the timing didn't make a whole lot of sense. And I'm there with you. I think we all thought this would happen, or there was a high chance that it would happen after spring.
Right.
What I love about this, and you and I have talked about this specifically, is you can only have so many reps be given out, valuable reps amongst your quarterbacks.
Oh, yeah.
You just took one out, and so you can spread that in developing Holden Geriner or getting TJ Finley even more comfortable in the offense. Or, what does Zach Calzada have to offer? And, of course, Robby Ashford's in there as well. And so the more you whittle that down and the quicker you do it, the more quality reps you can give to the guys that have a realistic chance to start and make your football team better in 2022. And I love that.
What a world we're living in. We went from we don't have enough quarterbacks for competition to we have too many, and we gotta whittle it down in an off season. What a world!
That's right.
But you're right. You're right. You're right. Geriner, if he's your future, here's another small note, and I don't hold this against Dee Davis, but now every quarterback on the roster was brought in by Brian Harsin 100%.
That matters.
So, that matters. So, like, every single quarterback on the roster now is 100% a Brian Harsin guy moving forward. So, now you have 3 guys in the spring.
Except for Trey Lindsey and Sawyer Pate.
Yeah, except for those studs.
Yep.
You
Sawyer
have
Pate.
Calzada. He is. This is Sawyer Pate podcast.
22 on the field, number 1 in our hearts, baby.
Exactly. He could be the second quarterback to throw a touchdown pass while wearing number 20. I don't know. There's probably another one, but that was a Cord Sandberg thing. A while back.
20 or 22? Sawyer Pate's 20.
I don't know. I thought you just said he was 22.
I don't know. John Samuel Shanker moving his number to the 20s is just throwing me off. I don't know.
He's gonna be so fast. He's gonna be so fast in 25. But no, like you said, it's just better. It's just better. The four guys is a lot in general. 5 guys is way too many. Right. Even with Zach, Calzada is still doing
burgers.
Yeah, exactly. Calzada is still doing some things, but so 4 guys. It's really only 3 guys going full speed in practice. But Calzada's doing some. Then you throw in another one. It's just way too much. So it's going to be good for both parties. I honestly think losing Ro Torrance to the portal is a vastly more hit to the team than Dee Davis.
Yeah. So if you missed it, also amongst the Dee Davis news, Ro Torrance, the transfer corner from a year ago, has entered the portal. And I mean, that's a dude who had a ton of upside. He played a good bit. I kind of wonder what happened there, because Dee Davis, like that makes sense. The Ro Torrance thing is like, you had a really good chance to be a starter.
Yeah, like very good chance to either, if you're not a starter, you're literally first off the bench. Like, you're going to play a lot. Like Ro was going to play a lot, and he was a very big corner. He's just a big, long corner. And the light was kind of coming on towards the end of last year. I don't really understand that one.
He was so good at playing the ball when it was in the air.
Good ball skills. Yeah, good ball skills.
I mean, he was really good at, timing his jumps when he chose to leave his feet. But I don't know. And I'm sure more stuff will come out of that about that situation. But I think it was Hokanson with On 3. They were talking about how, they had heard some rumblings of that. And like, that just got me off guard. I had not heard that. Had you heard that was a possibility before it happened?
I can honestly say that I had not. I was kind of counting on him to, counting on him to be an impact on the defense. I mean, he's part of that the depth in the defensive backfield that sort of just keeps taking hits.
And it's still okay. I mean, you still got dudes. He kind of had a role though that other people weren't able to fill just because of his size. Because I mean, Nehemiah Pritchett and Jalen Simpson, those guys make sense, but like, they're not the same type of corner. So, I mean, Ro Torrance reminds me a little bit of Jamel Dean.
Yeah, I could see that. See that. I've seen, I'm looking on Auburn Live message board, and J-Head, who's a pretty popular insider, he said that,
who's cooler on that message board, you or J-Head?
J-Head's way cooler than me. Like, so much cooler than me. I'm just there for giggles and laughs. He actually brings good info. So
it's like, man, you're taking this really seriously, and I'm proud of him for it.
Exactly. He said, there's probably going to be a few more that pop towards the end of spring, maybe in the portal, but it looks like AD Diamond has really moved up and sort of possibly taken a little bit of the playing time away, possibly taking some of the playing time away from Ro Torrance. So that's good. That's good to hear. Young guys stepping up, and it's not just, younger guys are maybe jumping him a little bit, but
right.
That's always a good thing. You just hate to man, the day and age of the portal is wild. You're not happy. You're just gone. And JUCO guys, I didn't even think about that. Like JUCO guys, they come in, they still got a free year to transfer. So I haven't even thought about that. So now even JUCO guys that you think you're only going to have for 2 years, if they don't like where they're at after, one season, they're gone.
Crazy.
It's crazy.
That's crazy. I mean, it's more fun, but I just can't imagine being a coach and having to deal with all this. There's still the question, though, Charlie 5, and it's not going to happen right now, but in a few weeks, there's a potential. I mean, Auburn's got a chance to add a dude every few days as soon as spring is over, because once again, I don't think it's a big deal that Auburn's losing dudes to the portal. Everybody wants to make the argument, well, everybody's leaving. And I'm yeah, that's true. But Auburn's not as many people as other folks are. And that's the concern. It's not about, some people want to point at Harson's culture or whatever. No, that's fine. People leaving is not a big deal.
Yeah.
But you got to bring more dudes in. And it's just, I was shocked how few we've seen come in so far. Two quarterbacks, which I don't know if you needed two, but that's fine. You got 2 quarterbacks. You got a linebacker that we're about to hear more about in just a moment.
Yeah.
And it's just that those aren't really things you desperately needed, but here we are,
Right. Yeah. You want to at least somewhat come back to being a net wash. You know what I mean? We're just
you're down 2 or 3 dudes. That's not a big deal.
Some walk-ons guys, but
sure,
we've got several. We're getting to the point where we have several spots that we're going to have to look to add to get back close to that 85 number after spring. And then what are you going to be? Where are you going to be picking from? That's what I'm so intrigued by. What are you going to be picking from after spring?
You're going to be picking other teams' version of Ro Torrance that maybe lost some footing at their depth chart a year ago. I think that's what you're going to be looking at. It's going to be all dudes in that situation that are leaving.
P5 guys, you're absolutely right. It's dudes that Ro Torrance guys. That's who you're going to be picking from. You're going to be picking from Ro Torrance guys. The only thing, I feel like there's this untapped thing of just pillaging the G5 schools, going and trying to get their best player, going and getting their best players, guys that,
Haven't they tried that though? I mean, you look at, that offensive lineman from Louisiana that came to visit Auburn. And then he wasn't even in Auburn's top 5. It's I think they're trying. I think they're looking at these smaller schools. You got
to try harder.
Position of needs, but
you got to try harder.
I think it's everybody's strategy.
Yeah. And maybe the Corey Rucker thing will work out if Ole Miss doesn't offer him.
It seems like it's going to be, right now it looks like South Carolina, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
He posted a million things about South Carolina. He only posted one thing about us. Is that everything? No. And I got a few listeners that DM'd me that watched Corey Rucker's IG live, and apparently he just wouldn't stop talking about how great South Carolina is. And it's dang.
Which is just the craziest thing to me. How can you not look? I guess maybe we're not to that level yet, but heck, they beat us last year. You would think.
And the year before. Can't stress
the year before, 2 years in a row. Maybe it's hard for me to figure out how you can't see the Auburn situation as wide receiver and not look attractive. But
can I say something that's a little weird?
Sure.
But all of these skill positions, it's as soon as they listed South Carolina, it's okay, Beamer, that dude gets it offensively. And it's man, that's what we thought Harsin would be. We thought Harsin would just be this offensive dude, and it hadn't happened. Auburn has had an offensive head coach for a decade, and it's just not necessarily a place that offensive players want to go play. That's just a weird thing to me.
It is weird. And is it so much that Beamer's an offensive guy, or he just understands the game better?
I don't know. I was making fun of that hire, and now I'm dang, they really nailed it with him.
He gets it. He gets it. He gets what it takes to. We'll see how it benefits next year and the year after that and the year after that. But man, you talk about replacing your roster, boosting your roster. I feel like he's, at least on paper, was by far one of the better ones. And we can't get hardly any guys at super positions of need that we want to come. Those are just battles you have to win. You got to win the Corey Rucker battle versus a South Carolina. Like those type battles, you can't lose.
Yeah.
We got to start adding dudes to replace the guys we're losing because we're going negative, and we got to get back to at least a wash or close to a wash.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, with the wide receiver room, I mean, the Kobe Hudson loss, I think, is crazy. And then you lose Demetrius Robertson to graduation. That's just so much of your production. You didn't replace him with anything. And I think Jay Fair is going to be really good. I really think he's going to be great, but not right now. I don't think he's going to be great in 22.
Yeah.
In 23 and 24, it's he's probably Auburn's number one guy, but not right now. And so it's just, you got to win. You got to win in 2023, but we will have all summer to talk about that. So, cool. Before we jump into our conversation about Eugene Asante, really, really interesting history lesson on this. Seriously. I mean, I feel significantly better after having this conversation with Isaac.
Awesome.
Before we jump into that, Charlie 5, how can people find you and hear you?
Yeah, find me on Twitter, _Charlie_5, AuburnLive.com message board, Auburn, Locked On Auburn Discord. A lot of fun in there. Have tons of fun. A lot of awesome personalities. We fight, we love, we hate.
Who's your least favorite person in the Locked On Auburn Discord?
Myself.
Got it.
No, I love everybody. There's nobody I dislike.
Perfect.
And if I don't like them, we boot them. I'm just kidding. We don't do that.
All right,
and then
yes.
Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Dad by Golf Club.
Perfect. That is Charlie 5, Auburn message board legend, ladies and gentlemen. Today's show brought to you by Built Bar. Built Bar is the best tasting protein bar ever. Yes, I've tried every single one of them, and Built Bar is the best. Also, have you tried Built Puffs? If you haven't, you are missing out. Several people in the Discord, as well as Twitter, have ordered the Built Puffs, and they are delightful. They're like protein-infused marshmallows. What's not to like? All Built Bars also covered 100% in chocolate. Even the Puffs, 100% real chocolate. It's delicious. Go to Built.com. Use promo code LOCK15 to get a 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off. That is at Built.com. Little Locked On crossover action. Now we're joined by Isaac Shade, host of Locked On Tar Heels. And Isaac, I want to talk about North Carolina Tar Heel transfer. Eugene
Walker Kessler.
We can talk about Walker Kessler. Gosh, I hope he's sticking around. I hope he comes back. No, I don't think he's going to.
Boy, that was a terrible performance in the second round there last weekend.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that.
Tar Heels are dancing. Kessler sitting at home. What's up?
Buddy. Okay. All right.
I'm sorry.
Hate you. No, that's fine.
War Eagle. Let's go. I'm so sorry.
Take care of sweet Gene Chizik for us. So, Eugene Asante, a guy that I didn't know a whole lot. And then, when he announced that he was coming here, found as much of his tape as I could. It seemed like he played a lot more earlier in the season last year than later. It didn't really seem like he got hurt too much. What's going on? What's the story here for Eugene Asante?
Great question. So let me just take us back just a little bit. Mac Brown comes back to North Carolina, right? Late 2018, he gets the job. 2019 is going to be his first fall back in Chapel Hill. When Mac Brown came to Carolina, he had two priorities, one on each side of the ball. The first of them's a little guy you might have heard of named Sam Howell. Yeah, right? Whatever. He's not going to be a first-round draft pick. It doesn't make sense. The other is a little linebacker named Eugene Asante. Those were Mac Brown's two priorities coming. Asante was thought well of coming out of high school. Interestingly, most of his high school career was a running back, transitioned to being a linebacker then his senior year. And that's when it all blew up for him. He started getting all the recruiting. Everybody's coming in and doing all that. So he gets to Carolina, ultimately is blocked. His path to playing time is blocked by another converted offensive player in Chaz Surratt, who is now a Minnesota Viking. Surratt had been Carolina's quarterback, comes over, and so Asante can't see the field his first 2 years, basically. But played in all 13 games his freshman season, played in all 12 games his sophomore season, because the defensive coaches want him on the field. Right. And then finally, the bowl game, the Tar Heels have a great year his sophomore season, make it to the Orange Bowl. Chaz Surratt opts out to prepare for the NFL draft. What happens? Asante goes off, career high 10 tackles, leads the team. It's a whole thing. And now there's all these expectations coming into last season.
And that was against Texas
That-
A&M, right? SEC.
Yes, correct, exactly. And so there's going to be a lot of parallel and crossover for Auburn fans who have seen that.
Sure.
Now, go ahead.
No, keep going, man.
Carolina got blitzed in that game. It was like 41-27. Part of it is because Michael Carter opted out, now New York Jet. Javonte Williams opted out. All these guys are done for that game, including, as I said, Surratt, which gave Asante this opportunity. And so what that meant for this past season that you referenced off the top there is that Asante comes into the 2021 season, and it's him and it's Jeremiah Gemmel, who's another Carolina linebacker that just finished off. Like, those are the guys coming in to last season in the linebacking core. In fact, I had one of my Sports Illustrated colleagues wrote an article. I wrote the title down so I could say it. How North Carolina replaces Chaz Surratt. Meet Eugene Asante, right? And so, that's the level we're talking about here. So everything you read, everything you saw, spring practice, all of that coming into last season, it's Eugene Asante, it's Jeremiah Gemmel. Those are the dudes. To hear Jay Bateman talk about it, who's Carolina's defensive coordinator up until recently, just here's some phrases he would use in talking about Asante. We've got really athletic, can run, great in coverage, extra run defender. Essentially everything Chaz Surratt could do, Asante could do. And so that was why the expectations were so high. And so Coach Bateman talked about his confidence, his excitement coming into that season. Started the first 4 games of 2021, and then all of a sudden there's this switch. Asante ended up losing his starting job to Cedric Gray, who's a sophomore. Last year was Asante's junior year. Right. And then we heard nothing from Asante at that point. So basically, to me, that was much more about Cedric Gray, this sophomore that came up for the Tar Heels, rather than Asante's inabilities. Jay Bateman runs this very confusing defensive scheme. We don't need to bother getting into it. Okay. But it's not about Gray's inability or lack of ability to understand scheme and play. It's just, I think Cedric Gray fit better into that specific scheme and role and position. And then at that point, there's just not room for Asante anymore.
So when that happened, Isaac, was that a talking point throughout the season of where is Eugene Asante, or was it
100%?
Like, okay, got it.
Because and I think a lot of that was specifically because of all the expectations you had coming in.
Sure.
Of like the defensive coordinator's talking about him, all the media is talking about him. That is the expectation, is he's one of the 2 dudes in this like 4-2-5, 3-3-5 hybrid kind of thing that's going on. Sure. And so that becomes a huge talking point. And, so like sometimes it takes a while to pick up on that. Like somebody's missing for a game or less active, and it's like, oh, that's weird. I wonder what's going on. And then once you've got a little bit more of a sample size, you really start asking the questions. So yeah, absolutely. It's a talking point last year.
Yeah. I mean, early in spring right now, Auburn's star linebacker, Owen Papo, is not currently practicing. He's just recovering from an injury that he had. But Eugene is rotating in with the 2 guys that have kind of stepped up right now. Cam Riley's one of them, this massive 6'4" player that's just transformed his body over the last 6 months. And then Wesley Steiner, who's this younger, athletic guy that can kind of move really, really well. And then Eugene's kind of switching in with those guys. And so, I mean, all of those things that you just said that, the former North Carolina DC said, and the one that stuck out to me the most was good in pass coverage. Yeah. Because, I mean, so many times we see above average college linebackers, they're good at everything except, man, if you put them, if you put them, more than 10 yards beyond the line of scrimmage, they just look lost out there. And so that's something that I think Auburn really, really needs this year. Can Asante step in and do that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say he would. Like I talked about Jay Bateman's defense. A big thing is that he then eventually got fired like early January, like January 7th, I think was the actual date. Asante had already announced his transfer early December, like December 2nd. And then, so I think if they had fired him sooner and hired Gene Chizik sooner, like that defense to me makes a lot more sense for a player like Eugene Asante, who can drop back into coverage, can fly around the field a little bit, like maybe a little bit of Sam linebacker in him. You might, you know what I mean? Like you've got some of that capability of like the nickelback linebacker hybrid. And so with that Gene Chizik style of see ball, hit ball, that blends into what Asante can do. And so if for the Tigers, if it's going to be more of a thing of like, hey, we need you to drop back into coverage, I think that's where he's going to find some ability to find some playing time, find his way onto the field.
Fun fact about Gene Chizik. I don't know if you know this.
Bring it.
He coached Cam Newton and won a national championship at Auburn. I just think it's important that we mention that. Got pictures of Cam right here. So
yes,
I think it's just important that I mention that.
Wow, what a year.
Well, I was about to wrap it up. Or were you about to say something else?
No, that was one of the craziest college football single season performances I've ever seen in my life.
There you go. You're winning folks back that you just bashed at the beginning of the segment. So I think that's awesome.
Listen, how about this? I grew up in Atlanta as a Georgia Tech fan. I hated the Bulldogs. I hated the Crimson Tide. My dad helped run a college ministry at Auburn, and so we were over there on campus a lot.
Sure.
Big Tigers fan. War Eagle, let's go.
There we go. And go Braves. I think that's important as well. Go Braves. Isaac, how can people find you, hear you, support you, all that good stuff, bud?
Absolutely. You can find me on Twitter at Isaac Shade, 1 S, 2 A's in Isaac, and Shade has a C in it. It's dumb, I know. Also, as Zach said, I'm the host of Locked On Tar Heels. I also write for Sports Illustrated's North Carolina site, and so you can find me there or cheering on the Braves. We're actually getting baseball. Freddie Freeman, I don't know. Zach, what's up?
It's okay. It's all right. Isaac, thank you, bud.
Yes, Eugene Asante, I love him. I want him to do well for Auburn, and so I think hopefully he'll be a great fit there for the Tigers.
Awesome. Thank you so much to Isaac. Thank you so much to Charlie 5 for hanging out with us on this historic show as we talk about Dee Davis leaving the program. It's crazy. It's crazy. All right. We'll be back tomorrow for a little Ferg Friday action. Also, be on the lookout early next week for a special guest on the show. It could be an absolute unit of a show. Stay tuned. This is Locked On Auburn.